My memories of gaming as a teenager can be very scattered. I was exposed to many more games as a teen than I was as a kid. As a youngster, I played a lot of games that were safe choices in my parents' eyes. Safe and familiar options that they would be okay with me playing. So this meant a lot of licensed games and Nintendo, of course. But once I got older, I started discovering other franchises in gaming, and found out about other series like Final Fantasy, Halo, Doom, Metal Gear Solid, and a little-known series called The Elder Scrolls. More specifically, the fifth entry, Skyrim. An epic high fantasy role-playing game where you could go anywhere, do anything, and be anyone. It was incredible to me that there was a game that could even let you do any of this. It left me with a sense of wonder that no other game had instilled in me at the time. Since I was a young teenager with no money to my name, it took me a while to actually get my hands on a copy of Skyrim. Before I even got my hands on Skyrim, I was able to play the previous entry since it was significantly cheaper at the time. Oblivion was the primer for my journey with Elder Scrolls and Bethesda Game Studios as a whole. And while it wasn't Skyrim, I had a ton of fun playing Oblivion. It was my first real foray into the Western RPG genre. I had played some JRPGs when I was younger thanks to franchises like Pokemon, but I had never played anything like the Elder Scrolls. The sheer amount of customization and freedom given to the player was unprecedented to someone like me, who had only played games that were mainly linear. And look, Oblivion may be an ugly looking game even by 2006 standards, but the look of the game was never the selling point. It was the world and what you could do within it. So, the summer had finally arrived when I finally had the chance to get my own copy of Skyrim. The summer of 2013 was when I dove headfirst into this world. Whenever I think of Skyrim, I always end up looking back at this summer and reminiscing on the moments I had while playing this game. Finding as many quests as I could, discovering every landmark I came across, learning every spell, acquiring every weapon, creating multiple characters to test out different playstyles, learning about the exploits and breaking the game in order to figure out how certain skills can be throttled. I was obsessed. You couldn't have pulled me away from my 360 no matter how hard you tried. I was in Skyrim. I was completely and totally engrossed in this virtual world that seemed damn near endless. Nowadays, open world games are a dime a dozen, a lot of them taking influence from games like Skyrim, but none of them ever achieving the same kind of acclaim that Skyrim did, with the exception of the last two Zelda games, Elden Ring, and everything Rockstar touches. So what makes Skyrim so special? There's plenty of stuff in this game that you can see in a good amount of modern games that look considerably better and are smoother to play. But the thing that sets Skyrim apart from modern open-world games is the simplicity of the world itself. In a lot of modern open-world games, they often force you to complete certain activities to open parts of the map for you to further explore. But in a game like Skyrim, all the game asks of you is, where would you like to go? And the game just lets you go. You don't have to liberate outposts in order to unlock other activities on the map, you can just go wherever and do whatever you want. This is something that Bethesda has nailed the feeling of while playing their games. They try to give the player as much freedom as possible in order to cater to the kind of fantasy they wish to live out. Want to become a wizard who struggles with becoming a werewolf every full moon? You can do that. How about becoming a family man or woman who is also a master thief by night? You can do that too. Maybe you just want to become a crazed lunatic and kill everyone and everything you lay your eyes on. Yep, go for it. Except for the kids, or important NPCs. You can't kill those. But that's what mods are for. Creating your own character has always been a key aspect of the Elder Scrolls, and while Skyrim tries to make your character a figure that's larger than life, you can also just ignore that questline and just live a normal life. At least, normal in the high fantasy sense. Skyrim did something that very few RPGs were doing at the time, where you could spec into one skill for a good amount of your playthrough, but if you feel like changing your playstyle, you can swap skills on the fly and experiment with different weapons and spells. Tired of playing a sorcerer that uses nothing but magic? Swap to being a full-on warrior if you really want to. If you want the best of both worlds, become a battle mage. This kind of flexibility is not too dissimilar to something like the job system from Final Fantasies 3 and 5. Now, some might note how the leveling system, while flexible and freeform, doesn't incentivize players with sticking to one particular build. While this is true, I think it will be up to the individual player to decide how they would like to proceed with their character's build. For example, I like to make a character and mold them in the way I see fit, but if I want to swap playstyles, I'll end up making a whole new character for that type of playstyle. So it really is up to each player to choose how they will build their characters. And that's the thing about Skyrim I really want to emphasize. Everyone who plays this game is inundated with choices.
We have three big rules of game development on our team of Bethesda Game Studios that we use when we create them. I'm going to back my way through them. Number 3 is define the experience. Don't define your game by a list of features. define it by the experience you want the player to have. And in the kind of games that we create, that experience is be who you want and go do what you want.
The game is like a menu. You have a vast amount of options, and it's up to you to decide what it is you really want. Now, this doesn't mean that the game has the story that reacts to every single little thing you do. It's no Mass Effect. But the game is tailored to offering you the experience that you personally want. Instead of having branching paths and a narrative, the choice is derived from the customization and flexibility of your character and journey. After finalizing who you will be in Skyrim, you can choose how to live your life. Who will you let accompany you on your journey? Will you take refuge inside one of the big cities in the province? Or will you find a place to live on the outskirts of town? What guild do you want to be a part of? Will you choose to live by the law of the land, or will you choose to be someone who works outside it? The beauty of it all is that you can make a decision on all of these things with zero restrictions, and you can decide when you want to do these things too. Typically when I start a new playthrough, I just like to wander around and try to discover new things I hadn't seen before. I'm always looking forward to what's around the corner because there's still some things that I don't even know about. The exploration never gets boring. Once you exit a cave or a dungeon, you'll almost always see something else in the distance that catches your eye, and before you know it, you'll be sucked into a whole other adventure. The exploration is so fun and engaging that I rarely ever use the fast travel in this game. It's a lot more satisfying to travel around on foot and discover places and landmarks on your own. I even did one playthrough a few years ago where I completely turned off fast travel via mods and traveled from city to city completely on foot. It felt oddly satisfying making the trek from Markarth to Riften and making it home in one piece. You'll feel like you've been on a real treacherous journey through the vast mountainous snow-laden province. If you haven't watched it before, I highly recommend you go and watch this presentation that Todd Howard did at DICE in 2012. He goes into a lot of the design philosophy that he and the team at Bethesda Game Studios uses when designing each of their games. In that talk, he talks about how not only do the players have the choice to play the game in their own way as is, but that they can also choose how to modify the game in order to craft the type of experience that they want. Mods are probably the most important aspect of Skyrim. The modding community for this game has kept the game alive for the past 12 years, and they still keep developing and releasing mods to this very day. You have a plethora of options for different mods. You have mods that add quality of life features, mods that add brand new locations, quests, NPCs, weapons, spells, everything. Everything can be modified and tweaked to create your perfect experience. What else is there to say about a game that I've been doing nothing but heaping praise upon? Well, when you make a game this big, you're bound to unintentionally create some issues. It's no secret that this game is technically flawed in many ways. The good old Bethesda jank took hold of this game real quick. Getting stuck in geometry, save files becoming corrupted, quest lines getting broken, certain items falling through the world space. Yeah, that's not pretty. Now, I usually don't defend games that have a lot of bugs and issues. I typically try to call out developers when they end up dropping the ball. But when you take a step back and look at the way Bethesda builds their worlds and creates their games, you can justify a lot of the bugs and glitches you come across. Is it immersion breaking when these kinds of things happen? Yeah, of course. I hate it when my companions clip through the floor to the point that they're just a torso. But does it make me stop playing? Absolutely not. Sometimes you just have to take the good with the bad. Compared to nowadays, if 2011 Skyrim launched today, it would be a fucking miracle. I remember at the tail end of 2020, when Cyberpunk 2077 launched, I was insanely excited for this game. I dumped a ton of hours into it and definitely got my money's worth out of it. With an asterisk. Because Cyberpunk launched in a very, very poor state. Doubly so if you decided to pick that shit up for PS4 and Xbox One. Luckily, I had a PS5 at that point, so I could play it in a reasonable way. Despite the bugs, crashes, and poor performance, I liked Cyberpunk 2077 a lot. Don't get me wrong, the technical issues were very annoying, and I probably would have liked the game way more if it had been polished to a mere sheen. But I was able to look past all that stuff and still have a good time with the game. The story, characters, and gameplay helped me stick with this game until the very end. That's how I felt about Skyrim back when I first played it. I had my issues with bugs and glitches, but the game was so good 95% of the time that I just didn't care about the bugs. It's quite incredible to see a game like Skyrim still hold up to this very day. Does it have its problems? Yeah, absolutely. With a game this big and vast, you're bound to run into some issues. The thing that matters the most is how well executed the game is in terms of its player freedom, and that is something that this game nails. It doesn't matter how you play it, what matters is whether you're having fun or not. And for me, I always have fun whenever I start a new playthrough of this game. With Starfield inching ever closer, I just thought it would be a nice time to take a look back at the last Bethesda Game Studios game that I truly loved, and appreciate it for the things that made me fall in love with it all those years ago. And perhaps, just maybe, Starfield could be the next game to make me feel like how I did when I played Skyrim for the very first time.